Okay. Uh, doo, doo, doo. Okay. Let's see if I can find my. Oops. I was on a previous conversation, and they were talking about Zoom fails and Zoom meeting fails. So literally 20 minutes ago, I had one of those where my dog unplugged everything, knocked over my coffee on my keyboard. If anybody was in the last session with me, I had to go change clothes. Like, it was bad. So if anybody wants to if anybody hears, I'm at home alone with a 10-month-old golden retriever. And occasionally she likes to jump into the conversation because she thinks she has something to add. I am still looking for the button that says share my screen.
It's proven that fluffy creatures improve Zoom meetings. It's like they've done studies on it. No kidding. So
I do know that they change the stress level
dynamics,
in meetings
absolutely.
and drop the stress level by a ton. And I'm like, you know
Absolutely.
what? Everybody should work with like a dog in the room. I can't find it. If you want to reach out to me, I'll make sure you get to me. Um, so as I said before, this is just a casual conversation. But some of the topics I wanted to perhaps cover today are things that I want people to think about as we're talking is, what metrics do you need for your program to demonstrate the success of your virtual events? So what are those metrics that we were just talking about? We need to know how long participants are spending with different types of content to understand, are they absorbing it? That's something that is important to be able to share. Are you getting those metrics from your virtual event provider or your platform? Is it able to measure those? And then finally, I worked with an organization over the last summer who was doing a virtual event, who was using their provider's custom platform that had Google Analytics built into it. So basically, they got a data dump without any interpretation whatsoever. And they were like, well, what do we do with all these lines of data? This doesn't help us. There was no reporting, it was just raw data. And so I was able to take the raw data and help them interpret to say, okay, this is what's working. This is what's not working. These are some of the insights that we're seeing from the information, and being able to provide them those insights so that they could make better decisions with the next event that they did. So those are kind of the three things that you should be thinking about when planning your metrics program or your analytics. For those of you who just joined, my name is Allison Shepard. I run a company called Attendee Marketing Solutions. I'm the principal strategist there. I've had the business for almost 15 years. And what I do is I work with organizations, I work with brands. I also work with associations and event organizers. And what I do is bring what I call my life cycle strategy to their planning. And I'm more on the business side rather than what you would imagine as a creative strategist. So I take it all the way back to the beginning. Why are we doing what we're doing? Who are we trying to reach? How are we going to reach them? And what are those steps that we take to be able to gather the data that we need to prove success? And then once we know all of those things, then the information that I have usually is handed off to the creative team to be able to interpret some of that into the experience that you're going to have. So that's my background in a nutshell. And we had started a conversation, speaking with Amber specifically, and talking about working around ways that they can show success when the pipeline has not been followed up by the sales team efficiently in order to help to prove that they're having a successful outing. Anyone else have any challenges like that we can talk? Barbara, go ahead, please, and feel free to jump in at any time. this is a very casual conversation.
Hi, yeah. So in the very beginning, when we first went into hiding or whatever we want to call it, but it was very difficult because they didn't really believe in it, and there wasn't a lot of information probably posted to the leads. So at first, I don't think I had a salesperson that wanted to even touch them, but luckily we do have a extensive SDR team. So we were able, and even then we had to figure out ways to grade the leads that we did have. So
Right.
luckily some of the platforms were multi-touch. So if we had a speaker, they had a session, we could see how many
Right.
came in. If we had a booth, we could see how many people came into the booth, but then we could eventually see what did they download. So because we
Right.
had all kinds of content in there, we had videos in there, we had snippets of webinars, what have you. So we came up with, once we had all that information together, we would say, okay, if they did at least 3 things, or maybe stayed in the booth for, you know, quite a while downloading, then we're going to treat them like an A and they're going to go to our sales team.
Great.
If they didn't do too much, but they showed up maybe just for the raffle, then they went to the SDRs.
Gotcha. Perfect.
So, which I'm happy with that to a degree, but at the same time, I just did my reporting just recently and compared it to 2019. And I'm finding that it was, I have 21% of the opportunities, but I do have 21% of the budget. So it is equal.
Right.
It's just, I'm like, what is that? What did I say? 21%. So I'm like 79% behind
Numbers for last year.
2019.
Well,
Luckily,
and-
I'm not spending those dollars, so at least it's apples to apples, but I'd like to find a way to make that greater without just wasting money. And part of my negotiations for in some of my trade shows that we've gone to many years and were successful was I couldn't rationalize just spending, you know, turning that sponsorship amount over to something that I didn't really believe in it because we had done some virtuals in the past and they really didn't amount to much.
Right.
So I was able to get guaranteed leads in terms of then spending the money. And that helped tremendously. So if I didn't have that, I would have been behind, I would imagine, in my budget
Right.
compared to
Are you as you're grading, are you seeing the same kind of or similar traffic, if you will, from your trade shows to the virtual events, you know, outside of the grading, you know, altogether?
we have been grading even when we had physical events.
Sure.
So I would have to say that if you have to grade them in terms of importance,
Right.
to have it amount to any kind of opportunities in the pipeline.
That's what I was looking. I was looking to see if the traffic was comfortable, but if you're not if you're not seeing, you know, the same kind of traffic in term, you know, if you're all the people coming to the virtual event are all or mostly A's, whereas at a trade show, you know, only a small percent of them are your A's. That may be a different way to look at it as well. Are you seeing overall higher quality of visitor to your virtual event or participant in your virtual event versus?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
And I would say my ratio for the A leads is probably a little greater than in person, but
Okay.
I think it's similar in some
Okay,
way.
that's what I was getting at. It's just a different way to look at it in terms of, you know, being successful versus not, or how it's working for you.
I think it's working to a degree, but like I said, if I didn't have some of the add-ons included,
Right.
like whether it's webinars with that particular company's database
Right.
versus just my own, or some guaranteed leads from another part of that particular show's, you know, like a leadership summit division or something like that.
Right.
If I didn't have that, then I definitely wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now.
Okay. So if you, apples to apples, if you just had a booth versus just had a booth, it would not be as efficient for you as the live event.
No, definitely not in the US, but I do find we have a large Galway office.
Okay.
And they're definitely, I think, a little bit more hands-on to, they definitely do a lot more touch points.
Okay.
And so they do very well, and because they're demoing, they're going one-on-one with these people, even within a virtual booth.
Gotcha. What's your industry, may I ask?
Tech,
Okay.
software.
Okay. And some organizations are more familiar, and they often do more of that virtual demos. And I don't think we're there yet in the US.
Right, because I can't get anyone to sign up with me. I'm doing them by myself. And I'm not even a tech person. So I'm just being friendly and saying, and I have like just, we have like a wiki page, and we set up for each particular show. And then I just put in all kinds of canned responses so that I can try to answer some of the questions the best that I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the good news is for those of us who also work in live events is that it's got to come back for reasons just like that. And so is anybody out there tell me if you're having better success with your virtual events than you are with your live events. Are you able to measure better success? Let's flip that over. I'm curious. Anybody?
There's something I'd like to know from everyone is, let's say we do go back to physical. Are you going to operate in the same way? Because I feel like I shouldn't. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but I don't feel like I should do it in the same way that I did before.
I think some things are going to stay online, and thank heavens for that, because we were going to a lot of physical things that we didn't need to, right? So I think the quality of physical events are going to improve, and they must improve. But at the same time, we've now been gifted this virtual opportunity that I think can only get better, right? So the frequency, the industry that I mainly operate in is industrial, decarbonization of the shipping industry type issues, right? How do we get to zero emissions shipping? And people are spread out all over the world and used to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars coming together physically once or twice a year. And now we found we can actually get together every couple of weeks. So we're solving these problems on a much more regular basis, which is great. Do we miss hanging out at the bar at the end of a physical conference day? 100%. But we're not going to stop doing that. It just means that we're getting much better at staying in touch in the meantime. But just a year ago, we wouldn't even have considered it. We talked about it flippantly. Oh yeah, we should stay in touch online, as if, right? But now it's just we live here. All of us, we live here. So it's become, the barrier has definitely come down, which is great.
That's a good point.
Well, I also think that there are going to become, as people get more comfortable with the platforms, it's going to be a lot easier for show organizers to offer extended, because in my work with show organizers, for years, they worried about how do we may be a membership organization and we may get 25,000 people at our show, at our annual show, but we have 150,000 in our membership. Why aren't those people coming? And even if they could drop in for a couple of classes or not, and it's not a commitment, it's not a 5-day commitment, if they could drop in from their office for a day or a half a day, or just the sessions that they really want to see, suddenly we've now opened it up to a whole new audience that was not going to attend at all, no matter what. That it was not feasible for them to be there in person. And I think that that is going to be a change for those of us putting on events, because I think there's going to be times where we have to address both in person and virtual in the same event, and be able to provide content and make people make people aware that they have to be available and can interact and engage with people both online and in person. I know salespeople always prefer it in person.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I attended a conference in November, and they used this platform that I put inside of chat. And I know that one other tech conference uses that platform as well, tech company. And it's mainly a tech audience across the board, all industries, but tech. And I would say that it was very successful on that platform. And next year, it looks like they're going to do a hybrid, so a combination of offline and online. And what was great about that conference, they have a similar functionality to this platform that we're on, QKey, where they have this, I'm going to say this wrong, but the sabbatical talk. So when you get closer to folks, you can hear them. And then as you move away from them, as your icon moves away from them, you can hear them less. So it gives you that same feel as being in person at a conference, where you have an avatar, and it gives you that after your 5th day at the conference, you feel like you were at the conference and you feel like you've walked that many steps at the conference. And it was a really, really great experience. And what I liked about it too was they have dedicated circles for discussion. So if your avatars went into those circles, that means that all of the other noise around you is cut off and you're having a more private conversation unless someone else steps into the circle. And they had a lot of these, so they weren't, overcrowded. You could always find one to jump into a private conversation, or you could have your conversation out in the open and be able to hear everyone else's conversation while you were connecting with leads and prospects.
That's good to know. Anybody else using that platform? No?
Yeah, I did. We had that. It's kind of an addition. I forget there's 2 names for it. One was like in Expo, and it was, she said the avatars. And the funny thing about it was if somebody popped in your space, like you could see their video. So it was kind of surprising sometimes. For me, it was, especially because since I'm not technical, it's, it just kind of like scared me a little bit. So I had somebody else go into this because this was more fun for them to do. And I said, just chase people around and see if you can get their attention to go to the booth. And that's what they did. They'd go in there and just chase them around. It was like it was a game. It was kind of fun.
So how, and what kind of metrics do you get out of that? Do you know who's been talking to who? Do you know how long the conversations are? What kind of metric, how are we able to measure coming out of that? Barbara, did you get anything coming out of that?
Not a ton, but it did get measured. Like we had a booth in there as well.
Okay.
They called it like Gather Town is the name of the whole thing. So they had, we had a booth there, and in our booth had a video that we could drop in. So again, it would get measured how many people actually watched the video. Gotcha.
Let's steer it back now. We've only got 10 more minutes. Let's steer it back now to metrics. And I've heard from several of you. Anybody else having challenges with metrics, or how are you measuring? Are you getting the right metrics out of your platforms? Do you know which metrics you should be using to prove success? Are you getting asked for metrics that you're not getting? How is that working?
I think, Allison, one of our problems is, do we know what to ask for? Like we were saying earlier, what's the appropriate metrics? How do we gauge by who came, what they saw, or what the outcome was from them being there? That's where it becomes fuzzy. So on our end, that's where the metrics to us kind of play numbers. We got the people there, they had a great time, they saw content, but the metric follow up in there. So how do you have event metrics in this world, I guess, is kind of the gray area.
Well, and that's where I have started, and in that realm, it's exactly like a live event. You start at the beginning, or like I do with my life cycle strategy, we start at the end. What do you need to know? How are we going to be able to prove success to our stakeholders? And in doing that, what are the steps that we need to take to ensure that we have that information? So I work backwards, and then that helps me to not only choose the type of platform, but also the how we're going to engage our participants. It helps to give a hint as to what kind of content we're gonna share. Is it a virtual booth that's staffed? Is it a chat? Is it just self-serve videos and white papers? It kind of, we work backwards in that regard, and then we say, okay, since we need to know XYZ, these are the steps that these are the different engagements that we're gonna have to be able to measure those different spaces. And in my work, it has not been whether you're measuring the pipeline or whether you're measuring, the different elements of the event itself are not important. And obviously they are definitely not always the same from company to company. And as a matter of fact, almost every organization I work with has a different definition of what their success is. And this is, our note from Leslie here is getting tons of metrics out of the events from the platform, registration, surveys, and Salesforce. In some cases, we know more than we knew from the live events. And that's true. That's the dichotomy that we've come across quite a bit. Now, if you're able to do that, are you able to, if you're getting tons and tons and tons and tons of metrics, what are the ones that you need to pick for your organization to prove success? And likewise, with that information, how are you able to parse it down or pull those insights from it so that when you go to do it again, that you're using that to improve upon your performance? So that's something that I've come across too, where people are just overwhelmed with the dump of information that they get.
Curious question. Hi everyone, I'm Shing. I used to be in sales actually back in the day for Yahoo, and I used to attend a lot of conferences. And as a sales guy, I actually worked closely with our events people to try to actually get, and of course, get qualified leads. And so just kind of curious in the group here, to what degree do you guys work with and measure success by, say, lead conversion? And are you guys responsible for that? And because that takes a different look at what metrics is important, because registration data, I think, is okay to obviously know who's there. But ultimately, for salespeople, it's about, hey, does that data help me convert sales at the end of the day, or get another meeting with a prospect and turn that prospect into a customer? So ultimately, they're really interested in that as a salesperson. So curious on your guys' thoughts on what you're measuring, and do you work with sales organizations to narrow down what those metrics are?
Well, and that's a great question, and that's part of as I was saying, in my planning out of a metrics program in my business, one of the stakeholders that I sit down with are the salespeople. And one of the questions that I ask them every time, and this will help everyone, is saying, what information do you need that will help you take the next step in your sale, either to convert it to a sale or to make them take the next step in the pipeline, or get your next meeting, as you said. So that's certainly one of the things that I take into consideration in planning how I'm going to approach it, so that there's an understanding. And when we do that, it also helps to encourage more engagement after the fact from the sales organization, so that they know if the information that they're getting on their lead is complete and what they are looking for in order for them to be successful, then it certainly prompts them to be more engaged in the process after either the live event or the virtual event. So that's something I would suggest to everyone is, if you're looking to put together either a live or a virtual program to say, what can I get you that will help you be successful in your next step?
This is Leslie. We work very closely with our field enablement team. So especially moving into the online event, everybody was in a panic. Everybody, our user conference, for example, is our biggest pipe driver of the year. And so everybody was in a panic. So we made sure that we worked very closely with field enablement to let them know exactly what metrics we're going to be pulling. And we wrote a document that said, this is how you use the information I'm giving you. I'm giving you this information on the sessions they went to. I'm giving you this information on the booths that they went to. I'm giving you this information on how much time they spent in keynotes and in live chats and things like that. And this is how you can use this information to schedule your next meetings and to build your pipe in a different way than you would for the live event. And it seems to have worked so far.
And
Did you do that within your CRM?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Everything went into Salesforce.
Great, directly. And so that all of that was captured in the CRM and they were looking there for their instructions.
Yep.
Okay.
In addition to, we had meetings, we held education seminars with the global field where we just spilled it out in the A's, B's, and C's of our user conference and how you will use it this year. And so, all of that data that I was talking about in my chat earlier. So for example, in the live event, we know which sessions they go into. We don't know how long they stay. Now I know how long they stayed in the virtual room. I know exactly which sessions they signed up for and then which sessions they went to. So we can determine this is their level of interest for this particular product in a way that we couldn't necessarily do before. When they watched our demo videos in our product showcase, I know how long they spent watching those videos, whereas on the live floor, I don't know how long they talked to the person that was doing that demo. So while there are things that we get out of the live event that we cannot get out of the virtual event and everybody misses being live, we were able to really turn some of this virtual data into a positive.
Leslie, how do you think that how will your stakeholders feel about going back to the live event where they don't have quite as much information? How do you think that will affect them?
Everybody that I've talked to is chomping at the bit to go live. I think that they're still, we didn't have the face-to-face executive meetings. We didn't have the face-to-face sales meetings. They couldn't go to the bar afterwards and have those organic conversations. So while they might miss the level of detail in the data, they still really want to have those organic discussions.
Leslie, who is saying that? Is that salespeople saying that, or is that executives, marketing executives saying that they're wanting to go back to live?
It's both.
And that tells me that as much as I, as a person, base so much of what I do solely on data and data-driven decisions, that those people that are responsible for those the salespeople and the executives above them, value the live in person more than the data. Is that a fair statement?
And we're a data company. We're all about data. So they're super excited about the data that we have been able to pull. But from a sales standpoint and from a leadership standpoint, they still want to be in the room with the customers.
Have they started interacting with the customers virtually though? Because we have events, and that's one thing we've really urged our salespeople is to interact with the people when they're on an event virtually as they would in person. We've had some salespeople extremely successful with it and some that just haven't accepted it. So
we provide forums for them to do that in our virtual events. We've been providing forums for them to do that. And we have had some virtual EBCs. I'm sorry about my dog. That's why I'm keep being on mute. It's COVID life, isn't it? So we're doing it and they're engaging. But our leadership very strongly supports us getting back out there in front of people. We will do hybrid next year, assuming that we can.
Allison, I hate to interrupt, but
I know we have to cut off. We are.
if there's anything else you want to add before we wrap up, this has been great so far. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. And anyone, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm going to take a little break here, but you can reach me at attendeemarketingsolutions.com. And just like it sounds, and if you want to email me directly, it's A Shepherd, as you can, with my name just on the screen there, SHEPHERD, A Shepherd at attendeemarketingsolutions.com. And if you want to pull up my website, it's just a one-pager that kind of gives an overview of where I'm at, and find me on LinkedIn as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions, talk you through, and I think this has been a really, really great conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
You
you.
were great, Allison. Thank you for all your input.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks,
See
I'm
ya.
gonna stop recording. Please stay with us for Meredith to present here in a moment.